going to discuss personal financial skills. Now, what do we understand by the term personal financial skills? This is basically the art of mastering your personal finances, your needs and wants, and more specifically, how we end up spending our money. Now, there's a saying that goes like, as long as the outcome is income, this is why we're here. We're trying to find ways that we can utilize our money in the wisest of ways to achieve our goals. What is the very first step of personal financial skills? The first step is creating a budget. What is a budget? A budget is, by definition, a very simple analytical tool that distinguishes what you really need from what you really want. And then this comes down to two analytical figures. What is a need and what is a want? Now, I want a million Kenyan shillings, but right now, is there a way I can find it? No. Therefore, I do not need it. Another example, I need to eat. Does that mean I'm hungry? Maybe, maybe not. But in the end, to sustain life, I need to eat. But do I want to eat right now? I don't. And finally, the other way to look at yourself in terms of personal financial skills is this: saving. I know they say no one has ever become a millionaire from saving. But the question is, how many have tried? The thing with saving is we try and save before we spend. Spending after saving is the wise way to go. If you receive your salary at the end of the month, you don't spend it all before you save it. Always the other way around. How do we save our money? Bank accounts, Chamas, under the mattress. That's for the old school people. But the ways that we can invest our money, the ways we can save our money that have come with technology that we'll try and see in this segment. Think of the simplest asset you own. Think of something you cannot live without. Now go back to that thought. Is it something that you can easily acquire? Is it something that needs you to save up for it? Why do we do all these things? There are a couple of reasons as to why we think about investing and saving. Now, the very first one is future plans. There are very many things as individuals we look at into the future. The education of our children, our health, our well-being, and also importantly, our career growth. In terms of education, they used to say, get your degree. You got your degree. Now they say, get that master's. You have that master's. Then they go and say, want that experience. Now all these things over time have come to become from wants to needs. They want you with a degree, but they need someone with a master's. That is how we develop ourselves. This is why we save for the future, to develop our educational goals. If we cannot attain those goals now, what do? We borrow. Borrowing is also a very important part of personal skills. You don't overborrow so that you don't end up not paying. There's very many ways to borrow, and this is through credit. How willing are people willing to lend you money? There's very many forms you can access money. Over the phone, the unconventional way we can go and borrow from friends, family, even loan sharks. Now, the other thing that comes with personal finance is called the T budget. Basically, take a pen and paper, draw the letter T. On one side, put your pros. On the other side, put your cons. Before you make any investment decision, the two ways to analyze your thinking. One, if the pros outweighs the cons, then maybe that is not an investment that you need to follow with such hot pursuit. However, if the pros outweigh the con, then maybe you can think into looking into it. I'm not saying this is the best way to make a decision, but it is the basis as to how we can have a clear path on making a decision. The other thing when it comes to funds, rather when it comes to our money, is very simple. The aspect of making it grow. By virtue of having it money, it really doesn't help you if it isn't growing. Assuming I had 1,000 shillings in my pocket and I was hungry and I bought nothing to eat, has that money helped me? It hasn't. It has to give you value. Now, this is the value we're trying to derive. This is the value we're trying to find, how we can access it, where we can access it, and to what levels we're willing to put any amount of money into such investments. The other thing we'll talk about today is long-term investments and short-term investments. Now, they say in a person's life there are three key things that will never be constant at the same time: time, money, and health. When you were small, when you were a baby, you had the time and you had the health. But you're a baby. Even if you had all the wealth in the world, there's nothing you do with it. As you grow older, as a teenager, you had the time and the health, but you had no money. So what did you do? You decided to learn how to live. As you started getting employed, you had the money and you had the health, but you had no time because every time you were at work. So you have always two things at a constant level. Now, when you're much older, you've worked your life and you've had your money, what do? You have the time, you have the money, but you may not have the health. So all these three things, they say we're in luck if you ever have them at the same time. But having this in mind, what do we think when we talk about long-term investments? We're talking about futures, basically. We're talking about a lifespan of above more than 5 years. If any investment is more than 5 years, or 5 years in terms of planning, then that is a long-term investment. If any investment is between 2 to 4 years, that is a mid-term investment. And if anything starts from now till the end of the year, that we can consider as a short-term investment. That is how we categorize how to invest. If you know the time frame you want to put into an investment, then you can determine how much, where you can put this investment to be. Assuming you want to take your child to school all the way from kindergarten till university, you know this is a plan that is going to take you around 25 years. That will not mean that you put all your money into gambling areas. That will be short-term thinking. Assuming you want to put your money in a 5-year plan, in 5 years you want to have married, in 5 years you want to have a new job or our own self-business, that is a mid-term investment. We don't want you to go thinking above that. And assuming you just want to get something done by the end of the day or by the end of the week, you go to your phone, maybe you borrow money from your friend or from these various apps. That is a short-term investment. And that is how we categorize time frames when it comes to making decisions. As we move forward, I would also like to talk about one key aspect of investment that is called the money market fund. Now, a money market fund is basically an investment pool or vehicle by individuals over a short time of period that will accrue interest. Interest is the extra return you get from lending someone money. The simplest example, the old adage, they say, if you want to know someone, there's a few things you can do. First, you can live with them. The second thing you can do is work with them. And the third thing you can do is lend them money. Then you get to know someone. The first two aside, we'll talk about lending people money. There's a very key aspect in finance called credit. 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 Not the credit for airtime. Usinipatia credit. Ukinipatia credit means I'm in a good place. And that's why they give you that credit. You will never get the credit before you give the money. Simplest analogy. Now, credit is a basic notion that the person you've lent to money will pay you back. Now, if they do not pay you back, then they default. And by default, to default is not to pay back. It's a bit of a wordplay there. Now, in assessing someone's credit, the things you look at: what do they do? Where do they do it? And finally, why do they do it? This is simply known as KYC. Know your client. They say trust, but verify. You're my friend. I trust you. I can give you money, but I have to verify if you will pay me back. Now, in this notion, before you make this decision to lend someone money, the very first question is, in the KYC, is who are they? What do they do? Do they receive funds that they can help you pay with? If you go take a loan from the bank, what's the very simplest thing they ask you for? Give us your statements. We want to see that if we give you this money, you will pay back. If it gets to a level and they feel that they cannot give you this money, then they see you as a credit risk, as someone who may default. In terms of credit, credit makes our systems flow. The movement of money from one person to another makes the financial system work. I'll give you an example. When I was informed to a long time ago, I had one 50 shilling note left with me. I was going to spend that and I would be broke for the entire second term. And for those of you who've been in boarding schools, especially in high school, you would know that second term is the longest term. And as an act of faith, I wrote my name on that note. And when I went to the shop, I gave the cantina and told him, give me what I need. Fast forward, 10 years later, I gave that money out in Nakuru. And 10 years later, in Nairobi, as I was in the streets purchasing something, I got that money as change. Now, looking at this example, there's one thing we discover. Money has no owners, only spenders. However, we need to be wise spenders. The fact that we have money, the fact that we're trying to access how money can make value to us, does not mean that we can just spend it anyhowly. Now, the notion of this investment to ourselves is very important on two factors. Time. As I said earlier in the segment, if I was to give you 500,000 shillings now, or promise you 1 million shillings at the end of the month, what should you do? The assumption here is that we are all rational investors. By someone who's rational, it means that we try and make the best available decision on the best available information we have. If I don't have all the accessible information to me, then I will not make the best decision. So two things, time and information. What do I know? And two, when do I know it? Because it is better to have knowledge you don't need than need knowledge you don't have.